Jake sat in his cage, but his mind was far away.
What?
He had been counting time since his capture, and he knew it had been 3 days. 3 days was long enough for Earth's military to figure out what had happened and start making plans, he hoped. They would come soon. Not just for him, but for Dr. Parker and the others. He could see that the aliens were treating them worse each day. They were scared and hungry, and Jake was not sure how much longer they could last. The door at the end of the prison room opened. Jake expected to see the usual guards, but instead Commander Vexstar walked in. He was not alone. Dr. Kethrin was. With him, along with several other important-looking aliens, they stopped in front of Jake's cage. Commander Vexstar looked different than before. Seemed worried and tired. "Human," the commander said. "We need to talk." "My name is Jake Morrison," Jake replied, "and I'm listening. Your people, your military. How many soldiers like you do they have?" Jake thought carefully before answering. He did not want to lie, but he also did not want to give away too much information. "Enough," he said finally. Dr. Kethron stepped forward. "We have studied your identification device. We know you are part of an elite unit. We know your people have advanced military training. What we want to know is, are they coming for you?" Jake looked at her and smiled. "They're already on their way." Commander Vexstar made an angry sound. "Impossible. Our scouts would have detected any ships approaching. Your scouts are looking for ships like yours," Jake said. "Big and obvious. Human military ships are designed differently." Before Commander Vexstar could respond, an alarm began sounding throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and Jake could hear the sound of running feet. A Zephyrian soldier ran into the prison room. "Commander, we have multiple contacts approaching." The ship, they appeared out of nowhere. Commander Vexstar's face went pale. "How many ships?" "At least 20, sir. They're small but heavily armed. They're moving in formation like they've done this before." Jake felt his heart jump with excitement. 20 ships meant this was a real rescue mission, not just a scouting party. The alarm continued to sound. Over the ship's communication system, Jake could hear orders being given in the Zephyrian language. The aliens were preparing for battle. Commander Dr. Kethron said urgently, "Perhaps we should consider returning the humans. If their military is as advanced as I believe, fighting them could be very costly." Commander Vexstar looked angry. "We are the Zephyrian Empire. We do not surrender to primitive species." "Respect, sir," Dr. Kethrin replied. "They may not be as primitive as we thought." Jake decided this was a good time to speak up. "Commander, you have 2 choices. You can return me and my people safely, and maybe we can work out some kind of peaceful agreement. Or you can fight Earth's military and find out why we're so good at warfare." "You think your tiny ships can defeat us?" Commander Vexstar asked. "Think you're about to find out?" The ship shook suddenly, like something had hit it hard. The lights flickered, and Jake could hear explosions in the distance. "Sir." The soldier, who had brought the news, was talking into his communication device. "The human ships are using weapons we've never seen before. They're cutting through our shields like they weren't there." Jake smiled. Human military technology might not be as advanced as alien technology, but it was designed by people who had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Every weapon was built to be as effective as possible. The ship shook again, harder this time. Some of the cages in the prison room came loose from the walls. Commander Dr. Kethrin said we need to evacuate the prisoners to the escape pods. "No," Commander Vexstar shouted. "We will not show weakness." But Jake could see that other aliens were not so confident. The guards were looking scared, and some of them were backing toward the door. Another explosion, much closer this time. The lights went out completely for several seconds before emergency lighting came on. Jake heard a new sound over the alarms and explosions. It was a high-pitched whining noise that was getting louder quickly. "Incoming boarding pods," Jake said calmly. "You might want to surrender now." The whining sound stopped suddenly, followed by a series of loud bangs. Jake knew those sounds. Someone was cutting through the ship's hull. "Dr. Kethrin," Jake said, "if you want to live through this, I suggest you open these cages right now." Dr. Kethrin looked at Commander Vexstar, but the commander was frozen with indecision. She made a choice and grabbed the remote control from one of the guards. The cages opened with loud clicks. Jake stepped out and immediately went to help Dr. Parker and the others. "Jake, what's happening?" Dr. Parker asked. "The cavalry is here," Jake replied. The sound of weapons fire was getting closer. Jake could tell from the pattern that whoever was shooting was moving methodically through the ship, clearing each section before moving to the next. "Those are human weapons," Jake told the aliens. "You can tell because they're not trying to. Destroy everything. They're being precise. They want to rescue prisoners, not blow up the whole ship." Commander Vexstar finally seemed to understand the situation he was in. "What do you want?" he asked Jake. "Safe passage for all the human prisoners. And maybe we can talk about not destroying your ship. You cannot destroy this ship. It is too powerful." The door to the prison room exploded inward. Psst. When it cleared, Jake saw something that made him happier than he had been in days. 6 figures in black combat armor came through the doorway. They moved like Jake moved, fast, precise, and deadly. They had advanced weapons and equipment that Jake recognized immediately. "SEAL Team 6, Jake said quietly. "About time you guys showed up." The lead figure pulled off his helmet. It was Commander Tony Walsh, someone Jake had worked with many times before. "Jake, good to see you're still alive. We were worried those ugly bugs had eaten you." "Not yet," Jake replied, "but they've been trying." Commander Walsh looked at the Zephyrian aliens, who were all standing very still with their hands raised. "These the bad guys?" "Some of them," Jake said. He pointed to Dr. Catherine. "The one helped us. The big one with all the decorations is their leader." Commander Walsh walked over to Commander Vexstar. Even though the alien was much taller, somehow the human SEAL seemed more dangerous. "I'm Commander Walsh, United States Navy. You have some of our people, and we want them back." "This is an act of war," Commander Vexstar said. No, Commander Walsh replied calmly. "This is a rescue mission. An act of war is what happens if you don't cooperate." Another SEAL came over to Jake. "Sir, Admiral Sullivan wants to talk to you." "She's on the USS Intrepid, about 2 miles away." Jake looked at Commander Vexstar. "Admiral Sullivan is in charge of our space defense forces. She's the one who sent these ships to get us back. If you want to avoid a war, you should probably talk to her." Commander Vexstar looked around the room. His guards were outnumbered and outgunned. His ship was damaged and surrounded. He was beginning to understand that he had picked a fight. With the wrong species? "Very well," he said finally. "We will talk." 2 hours later, Jake stood on the bridge of the USS Intrepid. Through the main view screen, he could see the Zephyrian battle station. It was huge and impressive, but it was also surrounded by human warships. Admiral Sullivan was a small woman with gray hair and smart eyes. She had been talking with Commander Vexstar for the past hour, and Jake could tell the alien was getting more worried with each minute. "So let me understand this correctly," Admiral Sullivan was saying. "Your empire goes around the galaxy conquering other species for sport." "It is our way," Commander Vexstar replied through the communication screen. "The strong rule the weak, I see. You thought humans were weak because we don't have ships as big as yours?" Your technology appeared primitive. Admiral Sullivan smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Commander Vexstar, let me explain something about humans. We've been fighting wars since before we could write. We've spent thousands of years learning how to kill each other efficiently. When we finally got into space, we brought all that knowledge with us." She gestured to Jake. "Commander Morrison here represents just one small part of our military. We have millions of soldiers, thousands of ships and weapons that can destroy entire planets. We don't build big ships because we don't need to. Build smart ships." Commander Vexstar was silent for a long moment. "Gosh, what do you want from us? We want you to leave our solar system and never come back. We want you to free all the prisoners you've taken from other worlds. We want you to spread the word to your empire that Earth is not to be bothered. And if we refuse," Admiral Sullivan's smile got colder, "then you'll find out why the galaxy should be afraid of humans." Commander Vexstar looked at Jake, then back at Admiral Sullivan. Finally, he nodded. "We agree to your terms." Jake watched. As the Zephyrian ships began to move away from Earth, Dr. Catherine had asked to stay and learn more about human culture. Several other aliens had requested asylum as well. "Not bad for first contact," Admiral Sullivan said to Jake. "Could have gone worse," Jake agreed. "Think they'll be back?" Jake touched his dog tag, which had been returned to him. "Don't think." So, word will spread that humans are not easy prey. We'll probably get visitors, but they'll come in peace next time. Admiral Sullivan nodded, and if they don't? Jake Morrison floated in the zero-gravity section of the research ship, checking the hull sensors one more time. The USS Atlantic Dawn was not a warship. It was built for science, not fighting. Jake knew this, but he still felt uneasy. Something was wrong in space today. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, can you come to the bridge? The voice came through his comm unit. It was Captain Helen Ross, and she sounded worried. Jake pushed off from the wall and flew through the corridors toward the bridge. The ship was quiet, except for the usual hum of the life support systems. Most of the crew was asleep. It was supposed to be a routine mission to study the outer planets. When Jake reached the bridge, he saw Captain Ross standing at the main display screen. Her face was pale. Dr. Lisa Parker, the ship's expert on alien life, stood next to her. Both women were staring at something on the screen. "What is it, Captain?" Jake asked. "Look at this." Captain Ross pointed to the screen. "Our long-range sensors picked up something big. Really big." Jake looked at the display. At first, he saw nothing but stars. Then he saw them. 3 massive shapes were moving toward Earth. They were huge, bigger than any ship humans had ever built. The shapes were dark and hard to see, but they were definitely there. "How big are they?" Jake asked. "Each one is about 5 miles long," Dr. Parker said. "They're moving fast, but they're slowing down as they get closer to Earth." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. He had been a Navy SEAL for 12 years. He had seen combat in many places on Earth. But this was different. This was not human. "Have you contacted Earth?" he asked. "We tried," Captain Ross said. "We sent out warnings, but these ships are jamming our communications. We can barely talk to our own crew." Jake looked at the screen again. The alien ships were getting closer. They looked like giant insects made of metal and crystal. Strange lights moved along their surfaces. Even from this distance, Jake could tell they were weapons. "Captain, we need to wake up the crew and prepare for trouble," Jake said. "Already doing it," Captain Ross replied. She pressed some buttons on her control panel. Throughout the ship, alarms began to sound. The sleeping crew members would wake up soon. Jake moved to the weapons station. The Atlantic Dawn had some guns, but they were small. They were meant to destroy space rocks, not fight wars. Okay, he powered them up anyway. "Jake, what are you doing?" Dr. Parker asked. "Getting ready to fight," Jake said. "Those ships are not here to say hello." Dr. Parker looked scared. "But we're a science ship. We're not soldiers." "You're not soldiers," Jake said. The alien ships were much closer now. Jake could see details on their hulls. They had strange symbols and patterns. Parts of the ships glowed with different colors. They looked beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Captain, they're scanning us," said Pete Collins, the ship's engineer. He had just arrived on the bridge. "I can feel it in the ship's systems. They're learning everything about us." "Can you stop them?" Captain Ross asked. "No, ma'am. Their technology is too advanced. It's like they're reading our minds." Jake checked his weapons again. The guns were ready, but he knew they would not do much good. These alien ships were too big and too strong, but he had to try. "All crew members report to emergency stations," Captain Ross announced over the ship's speakers. "This is not a drill. We have contact with unknown vessels." Amy Chen, the communications officer, ran onto the bridge. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal from the alien ships. It's in English." "Put it on the speakers," Captain Ross ordered. A voice filled the bridge. It was deep and strange, like metal scraping against stone. "Primitive vessel, you will surrender immediately. We are the Zephyrian Empire. Your species will serve us or be destroyed." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. He had heard threats before, but never like this. "Captain, let me answer them." "No, Jake, let me handle this." Captain Ross pressed a button. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Helen Ross of the research ship Atlantic Dawn. We are on a peaceful mission. We mean no harm." The alien voice laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Peaceful? We care nothing for your peace. You will prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction." Jake saw movement on the screen. Small ships were leaving the alien vessels. They were heading straight for the Atlantic dawn. "Captain, they're sending boarding parties," Pete Collins said. 10 ships, each one about the size of a fighter jet. "Jake, what do we do?" Captain Ross asked. Jake looked at the crew on the bridge. They were all scared, but they were looking at him with hope. They knew he was their best chance to survive. "We fight," Jake said. "We make them pay for every step they take on our ship." He moved to the gun controls and targeted the first alien. Fighter. The Atlantic Dawn's weapons fired bright beams of energy. The beams hit the alien ship, but barely scratched it. The alien ships kept coming. "Shields are too strong," Jake said. "But maybe we can damage them when they try to board us." The alien fighters reached the Atlantic Dawn and attached themselves to the hull. Jake could hear metal cutting through. Metal. They were making holes in the ship. "All crew members, arm yourselves," Captain Ross announced. "Prepare to repel boarders." Jake grabbed his rifle and extra ammunition. He'd always carried weapons, even on science missions. Now he was glad he did. "Dr. Parker, hide the research data," Jake told her. "Don't let them get their hands on our information about Earth." "I'm on it," Dr. Parker said. She ran to her computer station and began typing quickly. Jake heard explosions. From other parts of the ship, the aliens were inside. He could hear strange sounds, clicking and buzzing noises that made his skin crawl. "Jake, they're in Section C," Amy Chen reported. "They're moving toward the bridge." Jake checked his rifle one more time. He had been in many battles, but never against aliens. He did not know what to expect. But he knew one thing. He would not give up without a fight. The sounds were getting closer. Jake could see his reflection in the bridge windows. He looked calm, but inside he was ready for war. He was a Navy SEAL, and he would show these aliens what that meant. Jake woke up in a metal cage. His head hurt badly, and his mouth tasted like blood. The last thing he remembered was fighting the alien soldiers on the Atlantic Dawn. He had killed 3 of them, before something hit him from behind. The cage was small and cold. Jake could barely stand up inside it.
The walls were made of some kind of dark metal that hummed with energy.
When he touched it, a sharp pain shot through his hand. Electric Jake looked around. He was not alone. There were dozens of other cages in the large room. Most of them held creatures he had never seen before. Some looked like giant lizards. Others had too many arms or eyes. Few looked almost human, but with blue or green skin. In the cage next to him, Jake saw Dr. Lisa Parker. She was awake and scared. Her clothes were torn and she had a cut on her forehead. "Lisa, are you okay?" Jake whispered. "Jake?" "Thank God you're alive," she whispered back. "I thought they killed you." "What happened to the others?" "I don't know. They separated us after they captured the ship. I haven't seen Captain Ross or anyone else." Jake looked at the other cages again. In one cage, he could see Pete Collins, the engineer from their ship. Pete was unconscious, but he was breathing. In another cage, he saw Amy Chen, the communications officer. She was awake and trying to stay quiet. "Where are we?" Jake asked. "I think we're on one of their ships," Dr. Parker said. "A big one. I've been listening to the sounds. This place is huge." Jake studied the room more carefully. The ceiling was very high, maybe 50 feet up. Strange lights moved across the walls in patterns he did not understand. The air smelled like metal and something else he could not identify. Suddenly, a door opened at the far end of the room. Several alien creatures walked in. Jake got his first good look at the Zephyrians. They were tall, maybe 7 feet high. Their bodies looked like a mix of insect and machine. They had 4 arms and skin that looked like dark armor. Their faces were long and narrow, with big black eyes that had no emotion in them. When they moved, Jake could hear clicking sounds from their joints. The aliens walked between the cages. Looking at the prisoners, one of them stopped in front of Jake's cage. It spoke in that same metal voice Jake had heard on the ship. "This is the one that killed our warriors," it said to the others. "It's possible," another alien replied. "Look how small it is." "How weak." The first alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Yes, it looks weak. But it fought like nothing we have seen before." Very strange. They moved on to look at other prisoners. Jake heard them talking about different creatures in different cages. They were speaking in English, but Jake could tell it was not their real language. Somehow they had learned to speak human words. After a while, the aliens left. The room became quiet again except for the humming of the cages and the scared breathing of the prisoners. "Jake," Dr. Parker whispered, "I heard them talking earlier. This place is not just a ship. It's like a moving city. They have thousands of creatures here. Prisoners. Some are prisoners, but others are slaves. They've been conquering planets. For a long time, they take the strongest creatures from each world and bring them here." Jake felt anger growing inside him. These aliens were slave traders. They traveled from world to world, taking people from their homes and families. "What do they want with us?" Jake asked. Before Dr. Parker could answer, the door opened again. This time, more aliens came in. These ones were different. They wore what looked like uniforms with symbols on them. One of them was bigger than the others and had more scars on its armor. The big alien stopped in front of Jake's cage. "You are the human warrior," it said. Jake stood up as much as he could in the small cage. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, United States Navy." The alien made that metal laughing sound again. United States, Navy. These words mean nothing here. Human. "I am War Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. You killed 3 of my soldiers. They attacked my ship," Jake said. "I defended my people." "Yes, you did. You fought well for such a small creature. This interests me." Commander Vextar walked around Jake's cage, studying him like he was looking at an animal in a zoo. "Tell me, human, are all of your kind warriors like you?" Jake thought carefully before answering. He did not want to give away information about Earth's military, but he also did not want the aliens to think humans were weak. "Some are," Jake said. "Some." The alien commander seemed to think about this. "On your world, do you have games? Sports? Competition?" "Yes." "Good. Then you will understand what comes next." Commander Vextar gestured to his soldiers. They began opening some of the cages and dragging out prisoners. The creatures inside fought and screamed, but the aliens were too strong. "Are you taking them?" Dr. Parker asked. "To the arena," Commander Vextar said. "We Zephyrians enjoy watching combat. It helps us understand the creatures we conquer. The strong ones provide entertainment. The weak ones provide food for our beasts." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "You make them fight for your entertainment?" "Of course, it is a great honor. Creatures get to die with glory instead of in the slave pens." The aliens finished taking prisoners from several cages. They left Jake and the humans alone for now. "Tomorrow, you will have your turn, human warrior," Commander Vextar said to Jake. "We will see if you fight as well in the arena as you did on your ship." The aliens left the room. Jake was alone with his thoughts and the other terrified prisoners. "Jake, we have to find a way out of here," Dr. Parker whispered. Jake examined his cage more carefully. The metal was strong, and the electric field would stop him from breaking through. But every prison had weaknesses. He just had to find them. "Lisa, what do you know about their technology?" Jake asked quietly. "Not much. But I've been watching the guards. They use some kind of remote control to open the cages. And the electric field seems to have a pattern. It gets weaker every few minutes." Jake nodded. That was useful information. He began timing the electric field, counting the seconds between when it was strong and when it was weak. Around them, their prisoners from different worlds sat in their cages waiting for their turn in the arena. Jake wondered how many had tried to escape. He wondered how many had succeeded. But Jake Morrison was a Navy SEAL. He had been trained to survive in impossible situations. And he was not going to die. For the entertainment of these alien monsters, Jake heard the footsteps coming before he saw the guards. He had been awake all night, timing the electric field on his cage and studying the guard patrols. Now it was morning, and they were coming for him. 4 Zephyrian soldiers stopped in front of his cage. One of them held the remote control device that controlled the electric field. The cage door opened with a loud click. "Come out, human," the lead guard said. "It is time for you to entertain the crowd." Jake crawled out of the small cage. His legs were stiff from being cramped up all night. The guards immediately put metal bands around his wrists and ankles. The bands were connected by a short chain that made it hard to move quickly. "Jake, don't do this," Dr. Parker called from her cage. "There has to be another way." Jake looked at her and tried to smile. "It's okay, Lisa. I've been in worse situations." That was not entirely true, but Jake did not want her to worry more than she already was. The guards pushed him toward the door. At the end of the room, as they walked through the corridors of the alien ship, Jake tried to memorize everything he saw. The layout of the halls, the location of doors, the number of guards. He survived the arena. He might need this information. Later, the corridors were huge and filled with aliens. Most were Zephyrians, but Jake saw other species too. Some looked like the prisoners he had seen in the cages. These must be the slaves that Dr. Parker had mentioned. The guards led Jake up a ramp toward a bright light. As they got closer, Jake could hear noise. Lots of noise. Thousands of voices making sounds that hurt his ears. They reached the top of the ramp, and Jake saw the arena for the first time. It was enormous. The fighting area in the center was about the size of a football field, with sand covering the ground. Around it rows and rows of seats, going up so high that Jake could barely see the top. The seats were packed with aliens of every kind Jake could imagine. The noise was incredible. The crowd was excited and hungry for violence. They made clicking sounds, roaring sounds, and other noises that Jake had never heard before. Some of them were hitting drums or other instruments. In the center of one side of the arena sat a large throne. Commander Vexstar was there, along with other important-looking Zephyrians. They wore more decorations and had fancier armor than the regular soldiers. The guards pushed Jake down another ramp toward the arena floor. As they walked, Jake looked at the walls around the fighting area. They were high and smooth, designed to keep fighters from escaping. But Jake noticed something interesting. There were gates in the walls at several points. These must be where they brought in animals or other fighters. They reached a small room under the arena. It was dark and smelled like blood and fear.
Other
Creatures were waiting there, all of them chained like Jake. Some looked scared. Others looked angry. Few looked like they had given up hope. One creature caught Jake's attention. It looked almost human, but taller and with gray skin. It had intelligent eyes and was studying Jake carefully. "You are the new human," it said in broken English. "I am Kral. I have been here for 2 years. 2 years?" Jake was shocked. "How are you still alive? I win fights. When you win, they let you live until the next fight. When you lose, you die." "Am I fighting today?" Kral pointed toward a large gate. "First, the Goran beast. It is like your earth animals, but bigger and hungrier. Very fast, very strong. It has killed many fighters. What else? If you survive the beast, they will send soldiers. Probably 3 Zephyrian warriors. To see if other species can fight their kind." Jake nodded. He had fought large animals before during survival training, and he had definitely fought soldiers. But never in front of thousands of screaming aliens. "Any advice?" Jake asked. "Move fast. Use the environment. The crowd likes blood, but they like smart fighting more. If you entertain them, they might let you live longer." Before Jake could ask more questions, a guard grabbed his arm. "Human, you go now." They dragged Jake through a gate onto the arena floor. The noise from the crowd became deafening. Jake looked up and saw thousands of alien faces staring down at him. Some were making gestures he did not understand. Others were throwing things into the arena. A loud voice spoke over the noise. It was coming from speakers hidden around the arena. "Citizens of the Empire. Today we have a special treat. A new creature from a recently discovered world. This human killed 3 of our finest warriors. Let us see how it does against our champion. Beast." The crowd roared with approval. Jake looked around the arena floor. The sand was old and stained with blood. Bones and pieces of armor were scattered around the edges. This place had seen a lot of death. A gate on the opposite side of the arena began to open. Jake heard a deep growling sound that made his skin crawl. Whatever was behind that gate was big and angry. The Goran beast came out slowly, like it was enjoying the fear it created.
Ow.
Jake had never seen anything like it. It was about the size of a large truck, but it moved like a cat. Its body was covered in thick, dark fur, and it had 6 legs with claws as long as knives. Its head was mostly mouth. It's filled with teeth that looked designed for tearing flesh. The beast saw Jake and made a sound that was part roar and part shriek. The crowd loved it and cheered even louder. Jake looked at his chains. The guards had removed them when they pushed him into the arena. His hands and feet were free, but he had no weapons, just his training in his mind. The beast started moving toward him, slowly at first, then faster. Jake could see its muscles bunching up under its fur. It was getting ready to charge. Jake had fought wild animals before, but never anything this big. He remembered his training. Stay calm, use your brain, find the weak spots. The beast charged. It was faster than Jake expected, but he was ready. At the last second, he dove to the side and rolled in the sand. The beast's claws missed him by inches. The crowd made disappointed sounds. They had expected to see the human torn apart immediately. Jake got back on his feet and studied the beast. It was turning around, getting ready for another attack. Jake noticed that it was favoring its left rear leg slightly. An old injury, maybe? The beast charged again. This time Jake waited longer before moving. When he dove aside, he grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at the beast's eyes. The beast roared and shook its head, trying to clear its vision. Jake used the distraction to run toward one of the bone piles at the edge of the arena. He grabbed a long bone that looked like it might have come from someone's leg. It was not much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. The beast had cleared its eyes and was looking for Jake when it saw him with the bone. It made that shrieking sound again and charged once more. This time Jake did not run. He stood his ground and waited. The crowd went silent, thinking they were about to see the human die. At the last possible moment, Jake stepped aside and drove the sharp end of the bone into the beast's injured leg. The bone went deep, and the beast stumbled and fell. Jake did not waste time. While the beast was down, he jumped onto its back and used the bone like a knife, stabbing it repeatedly in the neck where he guessed its major blood vessels would be. The beast thrashed and tried to throw him off, but Jake held on. His years of training had taught him how to stay on a moving target. After what felt like forever, the beast's movements slowed, then stopped. Jake stood up, covered in blood and sand. The arena was completely silent. Then, slowly, the crowd began to cheer. They had not expected the small human to win, especially not so cleverly. Commander Vexstar stood up in his throne. Impressive human, but you are not finished yet. 3 gates opened around the arena. From each one came a Zephyrian warrior, fully armed and armored. They moved toward Jake with the confidence of soldiers who had never lost a fight. Jake picked up his bloody bone and got ready for round 2. The 3 Zephyrian warriors moved toward Jake in a triangle formation. They were smart fighters, Jake could tell. They did not rush in like the beast had done. They were taking their time, studying him, looking for weaknesses. Each warrior carried different weapons. One had a long spear with a glowing tip. Another had 2 curved swords that hummed with energy. The third carried a heavy mace that looked like it could crush bones with one hit. Jake gripped his bone weapon tighter, felt weak and small compared to their advanced weapons. But Jake had learned long ago that the weapon did not make the warrior. The warrior made the weapon. The crowd was quiet now, watching carefully. This was not entertainment anymore. This was a test. Everyone wanted to see if this small human could really fight trained Zephyrian soldiers. The warrior with the spear attacked first. He thrust the weapon at Jake's chest with lightning speed. Jake barely managed to dodge, feeling the heat from the glowing tip as it passed by his face. Before Jake could recover, the warrior with the swords was on him. The alien swung both weapons in a deadly cross pattern. Jake dropped to the ground and rolled backward, feeling the energy blades cut through the air where his head had been a second before. The third warrior, the one with the mace, tried to crush Jake while he was on the ground. Jake rolled again, and the heavy weapon smashed into the sand where he had been lying. The impact was so hard it made a crater. Jake jumped back to his feet and ran toward the edge of the arena. He needed space to think and plan. The three warriors followed him, but they were careful not to get too spread out. They were working as a team. Jake's mind raced as he ran. These aliens were good fighters, but they fought like they had always won easily. They were confident, maybe too confident. And confidence could be a weakness if Jake used it right. He stopped running and turned to face them. The spear warrior attacked again, thrusting his weapon forward. This time Jake did something unexpected. Instead of dodging away, he moved to war at the attack. He grabbed the spear shaft with his free hand and pulled hard. The Zephyrian warrior was surprised. Had not expected a creature to grab his weapon. He stumbled forward, off balance. Jake used the bone in his other hand to strike the warrior in the throat. Right where his armor had a gap, the warrior made a choking sound and fell backward. His spear dropped to the sand. Jake quickly grabbed the spear. Now he had a real weapon. The crowd made excited noises. They had not expected the human to be so clever. The remaining two warriors were more careful now. They had seen their partner defeated by tactics they did not understand. They circled Jake slowly, trying to attack. From both sides at once, the sword warrior came at Jake from the left while the mace warrior attacked from the right. Jake waited until they were both committed to their attacks. Then he did something that shocked everyone in the arena. He threw his spear, but he did not throw it at either warrior. Instead, he threw it straight up into the air. Up, confused, wondering what the human was doing. While they were distracted, Jake dove forward and rolled between them. He came up behind the sword warrior and grabbed him around the neck. The alien was strong, but Jake had been trained in hand-to-hand combat since he was young. Jake twisted his body and threw the sword. Warrior over his shoulder, the alien crashed into the mace warrior, and both of them fell to the ground in a tangle of armor and weapons. The spear Jake had thrown came back down. He caught it perfectly and drove the glowing tip into the chest of the sword warrior before either alien could get back up. The mace warrior rolled away and got to his feet. He was the last one left, and Jake could see fear in his black eyes. He had never seen fear in a Zephyrian before. The final warrior raised his mace and charged with a desperate roar. Jake stood his ground and waited. When the alien swung the heavy weapon, Jake ducked under it and thrust upward with the spear. The glowing tip went through a gap in the warrior's armor and found his heart. The arena fell completely silent. Jake stood alone in the center, covered in blood and sand, holding the alien spear. 3 Zephyrian warriors lay dead around him. Then the crowd exploded. They roared and cheered and made sounds Jake had never heard before. Some of them were throwing flowers and other objects into the arena. They were celebrating, but Jake was not sure if they were happy or angry. Guards rushed onto the arena floor. Jake thought they might attack him, but instead they just surrounded him and waited. Commander Vexstar was walking down from his throne, and he did not look pleased. Impossible, Commander Vexstar said when he reached Jake. No single creature has ever defeated 3 of our warriors in combat. I guess there's a first time for everything, Jake said. The commander studied Jake carefully. You are not like other creatures we have conquered. You fight with intelligence, not just strength. This is ... unusual. More aliens came onto the arena floor. These ones wore different uniforms. They looked like doctors or scientists. They began examining the dead warriors and taking notes. Take the human to the medical center, Commander Vexstar ordered. I want to know how it is possible for such a small creature to defeat our finest soldiers. The guards led Jake out of the arena. As they walked through the corridors, Jake could hear the crowd still making noise. Word of his victory was spreading quickly through the ship. The medical center was clean and bright, very different from the dark prison cells. The alien doctors made Jake lie on a table while they ran strange devices over his body. Devices hummed and beeped and flashed different colored lights. No cybernetic enhancements, one doctor said to another. No genetic modifications. Number. Performance drugs? How is this possible? The second doctor asked. Look at the muscle density, the bone structure. This creature is built for violence. They continued their examination for a long time. So they took samples of Jake's blood and looked at his teeth and fingernails. They measured every part of his body and recorded everything. One of the doctors noticed something around Jake's neck. What is this metal object? Jake looked down. They were talking about his dog tag. It was a simple piece of metal on a chain that all American military personnel wore. It had his name, service number, and other basic information stamped into it. "It's just identification," Jake said. The doctor removed the dog tag and examined it closely. "Interesting. The metal is primitive, but the markings are very precise. What do these symbols mean?" Jake did not answer. He was not going to give them information about Earth's military. The doctor took the dog tag to a machine in the corner of the room. The machine scanned it and began displaying information on a screen. Jake could not read the alien writing on the screen, but he could see that the machine was working hard to translate his dog tag. After several minutes, the machine made a sound that meant it was finished. The doctor looked at the screen and made a surprised noise. "Dr. Catherine, you need to see this." The first doctor called to another alien, who had just entered the room. Dr. Catherine was different from the other aliens Jake had seen. She was smaller and had different markings on her skin. She moved with the confidence of someone who was very smart and knew it. She looked at the screen and her eyes widened. "Are you certain this translation is correct?" "The computer has checked it 3 times. These markings indicate military service. Advanced military service." Dr. Catherine picked up Jake's dog tag and studied it more carefully. "Morrison, Jake, service number, blood type, these other markings, ... What do they mean?" She turned to Jake. "What is Bud S?" Jake said nothing. "What is DevGru?" Jake remained silent. Dr. Catherine looked back at her computer. "The translation algorithms are having difficulty with some of these terms, but they appear to be related to elite military training, specialized combat units." She looked at Jake again, and for the first time, Jake saw something new in an alien's eyes. Not fear, not anger, but respect. "You are not just a soldier, are you?" she said quietly. "You are something special, something elite." Jake met her gaze and said nothing. But Dr. Catherine was smart, and she was starting to understand that the Zephyrian Empire had made a very big mistake when they decided to conquer Earth. Dr. Catherine worked through the night in her laboratory. She had sent Jake back to his cage, but she kept his dog tag. The small piece of metal was causing her more trouble than any problem she had faced in her 20 years as a scientist. Her computer systems were the best the Zephyrian Empire had to offer. They could translate any known language in the galaxy. But the terms on Jake's dog tag were giving them serious problems. "Computer, run another search on the term DevGru," she said. The computer made thinking sounds for several minutes. "Direct translation available. Context suggests specialized military unit. Cross-reference with other markings indicates highest level of training and selection." Dr. Catherine frowned. "What about Operation Neptune Spear?" "Partial translation available. Operation indicates planned military action. Neptune appears to be a mythological reference. Spear suggests combat weapons. Combined context indicates successful completion of high-priority mission." This was getting worse, not better. Dr. Catherine had been studying conquered species for decades. Usually when they captured soldiers from new worlds, the soldiers were simple fighters with basic training. But this human's identification suggested something completely different. She pulled up the video recordings from Jake's fights in the arena. She watched them again, this time looking for specific details. The way Jake moved, the way he analyzed his opponents, the way he used the environment. To his advantage, computer analyzed fighting techniques displayed by the human subject. The computer studied the videos, analysis complete. Subject demonstrates advanced tactical awareness, precise movement control, and adaptive strategy formation. Fighting. Style unknown in Galactic database. Efficiency rating, extremely high. Dr. Catherine felt a cold feeling in her stomach. She had seen many fighters from many worlds. Most of them relied on strength, speed, or natural weapons. But Jake fought with his mind as much as his body. He thought several steps ahead of his opponents. She decided to check the communications they had intercepted from Earth during the invasion. Maybe there were clues there about what kind of species they were really dealing with. The communication files were stored in the military database. Dr. Catherine, had to get special permission to access them, but her curiosity about the human was stronger than her fear of getting in trouble. She found hundreds of radio messages that the Zephyrian ships had picked up during their approach to Earth. Most were civilian communications, news broadcasts, entertainment programs, personal messages, but some were military. Computer. Search military communications for references to Navy SEAL. The computer found several matches. Dr. Catherine began reading through them. What she found made her more worried with each file. The communications talked about elite forces and special operations. They mentioned training programs that lasted for years and had failure rates over 70%. They described missions in hostile environments and combat operations that seemed almost impossible. But it was not just about individual soldiers. The communications revealed something much more frightening. Earth had multiple branches of military service. They had armies, navies, air forces, and Marine Corps. They had different levels of soldiers, from basic infantry to elite special forces, and Jake Morrison was apparently at the top of that. Pyramid. Dr. Catherine found a communication that mentioned DevGru specifically, described them as the most elite counterterrorism unit on the planet and soldiers chosen from the best of the best. Her hands were shaking as she read. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered over 200 worlds. On most of those worlds, they had faced armies of farmers with basic weapons. On the more advanced worlds, they had fought professional soldiers with good equipment. But they had never encountered a world where warfare was so advanced that they had multiple levels of elite soldiers. She opened another file and found something that made her blood freeze. It was a communication about something called military academies and war colleges. Apparently, humans had entire schools dedicated to studying warfare. They spent years learning strategy and tactics just like Zephyrians spent years learning science or engineering. This was not a primitive species that had accidentally developed some fighting skills. This was a species that had turned warfare into an art form. Dr. Catherine picked up her communication device and called Commander Vexstar. It was late at night, but this could not wait until morning. Commander, I need to see you immediately. About the human prisoner. Dr. Catherine, it is the middle of the sleep cycle. It's better be important. Sir, it is more important than anything we have ever discovered. 20 minutes later, Commander Vexstar arrived at her laboratory. He looked tired and annoyed. It's so urgent that it could not wait until morning? Dr. Catherine showed him Jake's dog tag. This small piece of metal has revealed something terrible about the species we just invaded. She explained everything she had learned. The military structure, the training programs, the elite units, the years of education in warfare. Commander Vexstar's expression changed from annoyance to concern to something close to fear. Are you telling me, he said slowly, that this one, human, represents the highest level of warrior from a species that specializes in creating warriors? Yes, sir, and there are more like him. It's possibly thousands more. Commander Vexstar sat down heavily in a chair. The Zephyrian Empire was strong because they had superior technology and they were naturally tough fighters. But they had never had to face a species that was naturally weak, but had compensated by becoming extremely smart about warfare. How many ships did we send to conquer their world? He asked. 3 battle cruisers and 12 support vessels. And how many ships does their military have? Dr. Catherine checked her files. The communications mentioned multiple fleets, hundreds of ships per fleet, and their ships appear to be specifically designed for warfare, not exploration or trade like most species build. Commander Vexstar stood up and began pacing. We need to contact the invasion fleet immediately. They may be walking into a trap, sir. There's something else. Dr. Catherine pulled up another file. I found references to something called nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles. The translations are unclear, but they appear to be extremely powerful weapons that can destroy entire cities. How powerful? Computer estimates. They could destroy areas the size of our major population centers. And the humans appear to have thousands of them. Commander Vexstar stopped pacing. For the first time in his military career, he was genuinely frightened. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered so many worlds because they always attacked weaker species. They picked fights they knew they could win. But Earth was different. Earth was a world full of professional warriors with advanced weapons and the knowledge to use them effectively. "We need to call an emergency meeting of the War Council," he said.
Ow.
"And we need to do it now." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of the North American Space Defense Network. She was watching the alien ships through powerful telescopes and long-range sensors. "Any word from the Atlantic Dawn?" she asked. "No, ma'am," replied Colonel Rick Barnes, her chief of staff. "They went silent 6 hours ago, we'd have to assume. They've been captured or destroyed." Admiral Sullivan nodded grimly. She had been preparing for this moment her entire career. Not alien invasion specifically, but the possibility that humanity would face an enemy with superior technology. "The status of our fleets. The Pacific Fleet is moving into position near the Moon. The Atlantic Fleet is holding position near Mars. The Mediterranean Fleet is guarding the asteroid belt approaches, and our special forces, SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, and the SAS, are all standing by for boarding operations. If we get a chance to rescue our people, they're ready." Admiral Sullivan looked at the alien ships on her screen. They were big and powerful, but they had made one critical mistake. They had grabbed some of humanity's people. If there was one thing humans did not tolerate, it was someone taking their family. Colonel Barnes sent a message to all fleet commanders. "Tell them to prepare for combat operations. We're going to get our people back." "Yes, ma'am." "What about the aliens? Should we try to communicate first?" Admiral Sullivan thought about Jake Morrison and the crew of the Atlantic Dawn. If they were still alive, they were probably in serious danger. "We'll try to talk," she said, "but we're going to be ready to fight. These aliens are about to learn something important about humanity." "What's that, ma'am?" "We don't start fights. We always finish them.